Hey everybody, Bonehead for the Bonehead podcast, and welcome to Top 5 Friday. Every Friday we get together and we have a look at the top 5 something normally to do with Blood Bowl. This week is a little different. Now, I shared with you some brilliant news the other week that Tiff and I are having our baby, our child, in December, which I cannot stress how happy I am about that. It's so exciting. It is, however, causing me to have a midlife hobby crisis. I joked with the guys, and I think I joked on the podcast as well this week. I've got 6 months of gaming left. 6 months of good gaming, like proper, I can commit gaming before I then get to commit to my family, which is awesome. So, like, it's really good. But it's also making me think, ooh, I've got 6 months. What can I do in 6 months? What do I want to tick off the list, the hobby list, the gaming list in the next 6 months? Now, when it comes to Blood Bowl and Blood Bowl hobby goals, if you watch the channel, if you listen to the podcast, you will know what we're pushing for, what we're looking forward to. Part of the exciting thing about buying this house that Tiff and I are moving to soon is that I'm going to be able to build a studio, which means we can do one of the things that Ben, Trips, Milton and I love doing probably more than anything except running tournaments, which is just live streaming games, filming more games without having to move all the cameras down into the living room and oust one of our wives. It's a bit inconvenient, and it means we can make better, easier content, do live streaming games like way more often, so that when a new release comes out, a new team comes out, we can binge some games and play with you guys. That is top tier of my list, and you know that already. But that kind of game space that I'm going to have in the next couple of months, that stream space, that filming space, that hobby space, plus with the kind of deadline of December, made me think, right, what do I want to do? What do I want to hit in the next 6 months of hobby? So this is a very Ben-centric list of things I'm looking forward to doing over the next 6 months that I'm going to commit to doing, that I'm just going to have a ton of fun doing. So, my top 5 gaming goals. Number 5, although it should be 6 because it's 6mm, is Epic. Now, I've pulled out the box art here from the first edition of Epic because, well, let's look at the art and tell me that I've chosen wrong. Now, the reason this is on the list, well, that's not fair. It's obvious why it's on the list. But the reason that it's only number 5 on the list is because we've got this massive rumor going around that they are going to be doing Epic again. They're going to be doing Epic Warhammer, that it's going to be set in the Horacy. It's going to be set in the Horacy, set in the Horus Heresy, 30k. And it's going to be a box set, the same scale as Adeptus Titanicus. You're going to have Imperial Guard, you're going to have Space Marines. I can't remember what it's called. Adeptus Imperialis, I think, is what what it's rumored to be called. And it's supposed to be coming this year. And I'm just all about that. I just am all about that. That is just such a cool point in gaming history. If you're not familiar with 40k, the game goes through peaks and troughs. It can be a horrific game. The new edition looks pretty fun. The world, the setting is just miserable. But it is beautiful. It's just knights with guns. It is incredible. And when I was a kid growing up, this is one of the first box sets I got. In fact, I got this game the very same day that I got the second edition box set of Blood Bowl. And I love small scale. I've loved small scale since I had that first box. And I played Space Marine, and then I played Adeptus Titanicus because of Space Marine back in the day. And our gaming group we didn't have the flexibility, we didn't have the financing to play Epic 40k or Epic Armageddon when it came out. The rule set looks sweet. I don't know what the rule set for this one's going to be like, but the setting, the scale, and quite frankly, one of the things that I find really exciting about this is just, I love the idea of this. Right, little dudes, you can paint them up quick. When it comes to a big table with big terrain at small scale, you can make anything look awesome. And I would just love to get a couple of games in with this. Like, just have an army, give Ben, Craig, Trips an army, get them to paint theirs, I'll paint mine, we'll do some wicked terrain, we'll 3D print some awesome Space Marines, some awesome epic terrain, we'll get the Realm of Battle boards out or something, and we'll just have a big 6x4 table with some ruined buildings, some big tower bits, and just have tiny men, tiny tanks just flying around the table, blowing stuff up. It's not Blood Bowl, it's not tactical, it is just murder. And I am so excited at the potential rumors of this. It could all be nothing, right? It could all just be completely made up. But if they hit this game up and execute it the way they executed Adeptus Titanicus, I mean, these models are beautiful. The game is so engaging, and it's just a phenomenal setting and a phenomenal game. It's a bit slow for me, but the game is just amazing, and the models and the way they've delivered it, it's just the best specialist game out there that isn't Blood Bowl, obviously. So if they could do that, if they do this with epic models, I'm all in. And if it lands this year, come on. Number 4, and it's a bit self-centered, I guess, is Engage. So Engage is my game that I wrote with Ian and Craig, and it is a spaceship, it is a cinematic spaceship combat game. You've got, I don't know, 3 to 6 ships each, alternating activation. You've got a little dial. You can do things where you like move your auxiliary power to your shields, and you get to basically pretend to be in Star Trek. And I love the game. It is just so much fun. I have rose tinted spectacles up the wazoo, and I've been working on the 2nd edition now for like 5 years, and I'm actually pretty happy with where it is. I don't have time to finish making it, but I love this game because I love spaceship combat games, and everything else that's out there is not quite to my taste. I like the narrative element to it, where you've got decisions to make and you kind of got risk reward, and it's just, I really enjoy the way this game plays. And Ian and Trips and Milt and Ben are all like, yeah, we should get together and play a game of Engage. And I am very excited because I want to do that this year. I want to get the guys together and show them how Engage works and let them tweak things. You know, I love the idea of just warping 3 foot across the table, firing your ion cannons, taking down their shields, and then launching a boarding action with your upgraded Space Marines to kind of capture the ship. It's just awesome. I just love the way it lets you kind of execute these fantasy, these sci-fi like scenarios. It's such a good fun game that it hits the medium that I enjoy, which is not a lot of models, not a lot of time, exciting narrative points. Think about Blood Bowl. They make a pass, you get it. This fails a dodge, it's a big thing. Right, what am I going to do? I'm going to hench this, I'm going to do this. Engage has a similar vibe to that, where what am I going to do? Do I put my auxiliary power, right, do I move and then put my auxiliary power into my shields? Do I shoot, then move my auxiliary power back? You know, do I just move? Do I warp? How far do I warp? You know, because you can only warp in increments of 12. So you've got a warp engine. The warp engine's power is probably 1, 2, or 3. That means you can warp exactly 1, 2, or 3 feet. If you put an auxiliary power on a system, that value of that goes up by 1 for each auxiliary power. So if your sensors are 2 and you put an auxiliary in there, you get +3 to hit. If you've got warp 2 engines but you put an auxiliary power in there, boom, now when you make a warp action you can move exactly 3 feet. And it's just a nice narrative game that means I get to play with spaceship models, and I love it. And I'm gonna just put in here that if Battlefleet Gothic drops instead of Epic, then I've got 2 spaceship games I want to play. Number 3, and we're going back to the 90s, although this one has been revamped. So, Necromunda is a game that it's just an awesome setting, and this is just a brilliant box set from back in the day. Now, I am, of course, talking about the new version Necromunda, but the prospect of having full Necromunda games turns me off a little bit. I think it's too much of an investment, too much to kind of get into. The boards are a bit too big, the gangs are a bit too big, the reading and the books are a bit too big. But we talked about this, I think, a couple of months ago on the podcast, and Trips and I have been banding this about a little bit for a while now. The prospect of Mini Munda. And the reason for that is, in Necromunda, you build your gang out of 1,000 credits. I think Sevens has got it bang on the money. And I think we could probably do a game of Mini Munda with 500, 550, 600 credits instead of 500. Play on a smaller board, play on a shorter amount of time. You've got one box of guys, you've kind of got more options. It's this weird little blend of Necromunda and Kill Team. I like the rule set for Necromunda. The campaign stuff's wicked, the extra stuff there is just fantastic, but the actual rules on the board are wicked. They're just so smooth and just so satisfying. When you shotgun somebody, it feels good. It's a terrifying thing to say out loud, and I'm sure that, you know, if the police are listening, that's a worrying thing to hear. But it just feels good. And there's a second element to this. I love boarding actions. I love the 40k boarding action look. I love the 40k kill team boarding action look. It's a bit of an investment to play that. But I can pick up a box of guys, and you guys know I've picked up a box of guys for this. I can paint 5, 6 of them. We can play on a board that's probably, I don't know, 2 foot, 3 foot square. I can print walls. I can paint them up with very little effort. I can make a really cool looking board, and that I think is what I think is really exciting at the moment. Is, you know, you got the opportunity. Like, we've made 3 dungeon pitches now, 4-player death bowl pitch, a sewer bowl pitch, and it's like, we can do this stuff. We're at a great peak, and I guess this is where I get excited about my gaming goals. My hobby window here is, it wouldn't take much effort to make a 2x2 or a 3x3 kill team / mini Munda board, a 2D one where you've got not sewer tunnels, but you've got like the walls and stuff. That would be no effort at all. Necromunda, when you get the 3D terrain, the terrain building stuff is just so gorgeous, and you can build some real spectacles. And I think if you're playing at 500 points instead of 1,000, it gives you a little bit of flexibility. The games are going to be quicker, they're probably going to be more lopsided, it's not going to be ideal, but there's going to be shooting, there's going to be great terrain, there's going to be beautiful models, and I think I'm going to get out of my system a bit. So Mini Munda is way up my list. That is my number 3. Number 2 for me, and this is something that I love the idea of. So this is Mantic Armada. Now Mantic, I've made a killing just making almost Games Workshop games. That's what they've done for the last 15 years. Some of it's great, some of it's not very good at all. But they've recently, I say recently, probably about 2 years ago, they started doing these naval ships. And when the rule set dropped, when the models dropped, it was like, oh my god, they're going for the hole in the market that is Man of War, a classic Games Workshop game. They're going for the hole in the market that Uncharted Seas filled and then moved away from. And I watched a couple of videos of the gameplay, and it was just a bit flat and a bit boring, and I was a bit disappointed. And when I say a bit, I was cripplingly disappointed, because I bought the models and they were cool, but they weren't cheap. And they weren't perfectly they were cast in resin and metal, and it was a bit ropey, and it was just kind of a bit like, this is a bit of a shame. But they've just kept at it. They've released a couple of supplements, they've released a couple of gorgeous fleets, and then they've done this thing that has just absolutely suckered me in to an outrageous degree, which is they've released the STLs for these on the Mantic Vault. Orc fleet, human fleet, well, the Basilian, dwarf fleet, and now the Tomb King fleet is coming next month, or the month after, the next couple of months. That's 4 different fleets of STLs that, for not a lot of money, you can pick up and print fleets of. So naturally, I've got the Basilian fleet printing now with some orc ships. I'll do the orc ships as well, and we can get a couple of test games in, because again, it's just that cool other angle, you know. And if we kind of work through my list, we've got small scale tanks and guns and stuff, and then we've got your kind of sci-fi skirmish, and then you've got flying through space blowing stuff up, and then you've got sailing the seven seas with swords and sorceries, and it's just so cool. There are little flying dragons, there are little flying phoenixes, and there are massive gunships. The models are gorgeous. They have elves. These are not STL. These might be worth buying, but I tell you what is worth buying, and this I think was what tipped me massively over the edge. They've just released the previews for their Chaos Dwarf fleet, and it's just so much fantasy fun, and I'm absolutely on board with it. Now I'm going in on this. I've printed the Basilian fleet. I've got the Orc one lined up. I'm going to be pre-ordering these from Entoyment, when Entoyment get them for pre-order, because I can't not, because it's just so much fun. And the great thing is, I've got the rules for these. You can go to the Mantic Companion, and basically I think it's free or not, or mostly free to pick up the rules, and I'm excited to try them out. The cool thing is, I've done a port, an alternate for Engage called Realm Fleet. So if I don't like the way this game plays, I'll just use these for Engage Realm Fleet, because I love Engage, and it's just a slightly different version with sea rules instead of space rules, which means I get some awesome models that are just fun and different to paint. And again, it hits that sweet spot of like 4 to 8 models where you can just enjoy them. It's a low investment, you get gaming time, and it's something different to film, and I can build some cool sea terrain, and it's just so exciting. So yeah, I'm even more excited about this one than I am Minimunda, and I think that's probably because I have already started this project. Anyway, that's number 2, Mantic Armada. Which brings me to number 1, and it is Warhammer The Old World. They announced this, they talked about this, and I don't think I could have cared less. Like, literally, they were like, oh, you know, we're gonna do the old world again, square bases, lol, and I was kind of like, alright, if you want. Like, not getting into that. Then I started thinking. Then I started reminiscing. And the worst thing you can do is look at old White Dwarf battle reports. So I've got a couple of glorious pictures to show you in a minute of why I've fallen into this trap. So they're bringing back Warhammer Fantasy Battle. They're calling it the Old World. They've got square bases. The square bases are now of indeterminate but larger size. I know that the 20mm bases are going to 25mm bases, but we do not know what the 25mm bases are going for. Therefore, we don't know what the cavalry bases are, the monster bases, the big monster bases, the little monster bases. We don't know what size any of the bases are going to be, which is really annoying, because if you want to build an army, you can only build stuff that you know is 20mm base. But there is just something so glorious about moving armies of little dudes around the table. And the great thing is, if you don't like the rules, if they don't land it well, I've got a couple of things out of my system. 1, painting a bunch of fantasy guys. And 2, I've got a Mantic army there, ready to go for Kings of War if I want to. But the key for me here is, you know what, I'm going to skip ahead, because there are some great shots of just absolute pure nostalgia. You can probably use this picture to figure out what the new base size is going to be. But this here, come on. If you're of a similar age to me, this will probably hit you right in the nostalgia sack. It's something about the red and the green and the yellow. It's like they could use this picture to teach a child about colors. And there's something beautiful about this. This is what got me into wargaming. This is just magic. This is my childhood. This is everything that I was brought up to be passionate about. And now with 3D printing, with third-party plastic companies, it's actually very achievable to brew up an army. I've got 70 goblins downstairs already. They're looking pretty cool. 25mm bases, it's all good. I've got some trolls on the go as well. I got a giant all prepped. Actually, it's going to be the brute fun giant, which I feel like is here somewhere. I'm always losing that giant, which is hilarious because he's giant. We've got this window of opportunity where we can reenact some of just my childhood, I guess, and my Blood Bowl friends are in a very similar vein of this is cool. And because of 3D printing, it's affordable. Back in the day, like picking up a unit of like 30 goblins would have been 10 booster packs, 10 blister packs, and blister packs back then were probably about £4 each. So back then that would have been £40. In real life money, I can't remember how many shillings that would have been. You know how much Games Workshop stuff is. It is expensive. It is £35 for 10 dudes. You need 100 dudes. That is £300. Then you need the cooler dudes. And the cooler dudes, they're all £60. And you need a few of those cool dudes. So you're actually looking at £600 for an army. With the access to 3D printing that we've got, with the 2S2s and stuff, I printed 64 goblins in 3.5 hours. And it didn't cost a lot of resin. Or at least, I don't know, maybe £10. £10 for 60 goblins? Deal. That means that we've got a cool army, and there's so many cool third-party sculpts that actually, I can just invest in this. I'm not a very good painter. I am a quick and efficient painter, and I want to, more than anything else this year, except have a healthy family and get a great house on the go, etc. From a hobby goal point of view, I love everything we're doing in Blood Bowl, and that comes first. But I want to play a game of the old world using very few Games Workshop models with a lot of green paint, and I want to play it on the channel. It'll probably be on channel 2, you know, the extra time channel that we're doing, and I just want to do it. I want to play this game, and if we can do it for the channel and have a great laugh with you guys as well, then do you know what? Absolute hobby peak. And I get an excuse to paint a load of dudes. And I think we talked about this on the podcast. I've just been gagging for a reason to paint 100 goblins, and I found it. And this game is coming out, I believe, this year. The rules are coming out this year. Goblins is one army I'm definitely doing. Empire is another army I'm definitely doing, because one-page rules, I've just knocked it out of the park with what they're dropped. Lost Kingdom, or whatever it's called, Highland Minis or something, have done a great job with the goblins. That's it. I've got 2 armies, but we've also got Tomb Kings, and there's just so many great models out there that I've been acquiring just because I'm like, oh, that'd be good. I could use that for Blood Bowl. That's quite fun. That looks good. I fancy painting some goblins, but I don't want to pay £35 for a box. I'll spend £9, get some cool STLs, print a few off, prime them, and then move on with my life. Well, do you know what? I took those models that I primed, I rebased them because it's hilarious, and I primed them again. And I'm going to paint them, and I'm going to get them to the table, and it is going to be beautiful, and we're going to have a great game, a great laugh, and I want to do it on the channel. So that is my top 5 gaming goals for this year. Blood Bowl will definitely come first. The goal is a studio where we can live stream games. We've got Gutter Bowl coming up, and we're going to be live streaming that next week. Then we've got our Entoyment Day coming up in August, where we're going to be streaming 2 games at once on 2 different channels. Then, if Games Workshop releases another team, then we're going to hammer that home with some live stream of games as that as well. The Dungeon Bowl series is coming out in the next couple of weeks, because I finally got to grips with the new software. So it should be season preview this weekend, and then the first game next week. Then we've got these Secret Sevens coming up, and the Bonehead Championship. There's a ton that we're doing with Blood Bowl, but I've got this impetus and this window of opportunity to just hobby out, and I'm so excited. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think, if I'm mad, if I've missed something, if you agree, or if you're excited about this hobby goodness. Let's go. Positivity. Oh, so exciting. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back soon with more actual Blood Bowl stuff. Happy blocking. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to support the channel even further, please like and subscribe. It really does help us out. Or come join us on YouTube Members or in Patreon, where you can get exclusive access to some content, some loot, early access to basically everything we do, as well as regular competitions. Or you can pick up some Bonehead Podcast loot either on our website at boneheadpodcast.com. We've got the Dungeon Bowl things, we've got tokens and stuff like that, or on our Spreadshirt site as well. Everything you do just helps us make more content and hopefully do it of better quality. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Happy blocking.